Hello, hello! Pizza Packs here, and we're back with our third Collector's Edition Commander deck from Final Fantasy. Today we have Counter Blitz. Add counters, pass them around. This, of course, is based on characters from Final Fantasy X, which includes Titus and Yuna. So let's get into these and see what they look like. As with the others, we have a themed tuck box. Oh, and had a security guard on it. This one has Titus on the front of it, or Titus. I believe it's Titus. Nice, a themed one. Of the four, this is my favorite color combination. I am a Bant Mage at heart. And then we have 8 counters. On the back we have 3 tokens. Our envelope of goodness, which has our collector booster sample pack. We'll be opening all of these in their own video. Okay. And our little insert goes over playing the deck and the 2 face commanders, which we have Yuna and Titus. And then overview of the colors, playing the deck, why it's Bant, and overview of the commander rules. We got this fun little poster of Titus. Alright. And of the decks for Final Fantasy, this of course is the third one. But also the last game that I played out of them. The Yasholta deck is based on Final Fantasy XIV, and I didn't really get around to playing that much. It was an MMO, though. Let's get into the deck and see what we have. Also, apologies ahead of time if you hear any kind of clicking. I've been having an issue with my throat lately. It's just a cough drop. Right. Zoom in a bit. There we go. Titus, Yuna's Guardian. Green, white, blue for 3/3 legendary human warrior. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may move a counter from target creature you control onto a second target creature you control. So anything that doubles counters, when you move counters, should double it. So good idea there. So I think Parallel Lives does counters as well, but like Doubling Season, Hardened Scale specifically does +1/+1 counters, stuff like that. So those are some considerations to maybe upgrade this with. And things like the Oceloth. Cheer. Whenever one or more creatures you control with counters on them deal combat damage to a player, you may draw a card and proliferate. Do this only once each turn. So proliferates energies would also be good. Let's see. And you may just want to add in a cheeky Prologue to Pheresis, I think it is. The one that draws you a card and gives all your opponents a poison counter. just to be mean. Let's see. Yuna, Grand Summoner. 1 green, white, blue for a 1/5 legendary human cleric. With Grand Summon, tap, add 1 mana of any color. When you next cast a creature spell this turn, that creature enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. And whenever another permanent you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, if it had 1 or more counters on it, you may put that number of +1/+1 counters on target creature. So that is really strong. There's a few infinite combos with this. Unfortunately, none of them are coming to mind. I know there's some number of combos with this. In fact, I think this one has an infinite combo with Walking Ballista built into it. I could be wrong. It's still pretty cool. And very good with a number of other doublers and whatnot. Auron, Venerated Guardian, 3 and a white for a 2/5 legendary human spirit samurai with vigilance and shooting star. Whenever Auron attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. When you do, exile target creature defending player controls with power less than Auron's power until Auron leaves the battlefield. Good repeated removal and just kind of a cool effect. Chocobo Knights, 3 and a white for a 3/3 human knight. Whenever you attack, creatures you control with counters on them gain double strike until end of turn. Okay, that's pretty sweet. We are definitely passing around a lot of counters, so that could catch some people off guard. Gata and Luzu, 2 and a white for a 1/1 legendary human soldier with flash. When Gata and Luzu enters, choose target creature you control. If damage would be dealt to that creature this turn, prevent that damage and put that many +1/+1 counters on it. What? Yeah, so Hardened scales this and what's it called? Walking Ballista go infinite. You don't even need you don't even need Yuna. Neat. Okay, so the way that works is any token doubler, or not token doubler, counter doubler, Hardened scales being the easiest one to do, would increase the number of +1/+1 counters on you get on it. So you target a Walking Ballista with 2 counters on it with this. So you could even pull this off on turn 3. Go turn 1 Hardened scales, turn 2 Walking Ballista comes in with 2 counters on it because of the Hardened scales. Play this targeting the Walking Ballista, and then you remove a counter from the Walking Ballista to ping itself. Instead, it gets 2 counters. The damage gets prevented and you get 2 counters. Then you remove a counter, ping it, it gets 2 counters. So you get infinite counters on your Walking Ballista, and then you just mow down your opponents with Walking Ballista. So, interesting turn 3 win there. And that is a little silly. Let's see, your Lord Jeskull Guado, 1 and a white for a 2/1 legendary spirit cleric with flying. At the beginning of each end step, if you put a counter on a creature you can this turn, investigate. At the beginning of each end step, if you put a counter on a creature this turn, investigate. Oh, that's pretty cool. So a nice source of clue tokens. Protection magic, 1 and a white for an instant. Put a shield counter on each of up to 2. Put a shield counter on each of up to 3 target creatures. Okay. That's pretty cool. Passing around shield counters. And being able to double those is pretty nice. Let's see. Summon Ixion. 2 and a white for a 3/3 enchantment creature Saga Unicorn with first strike. And it has 3 chapters. Arrow Spark, exile target creature and opponent controls until the saga leaves the battlefield. And then 2 and 3 are put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. You gain 2 life. A nice way to pass around more counters. Summon Yojimbo. 3 and a white for a 5/5 enchantment creature Saga Samurai with vigilance. And 4 chapters. Chapter 1, exile target artifact, enchantment, or tapped creature an opponent controls. Chapter 2 and 3, until your next turn, creatures can't attack you, unless their controllers pay 2 for each of those creatures. So built-in Ghostly Prison. And then Chapter 4, create X treasures where X is the number of opponents who control a creature with power 4 or greater. That's pretty slick. Sure, there are some good ways of abusing this, like possibly removing counters once it gets to 2 or 3, or just doing other cool stuff. Oh, you could move counters off of this onto another creature with Titus. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. You could move the You could move the lore counter from a saga onto another creature that's not a saga, or you could move it between two sagas. That could be pretty interesting. Summoner's Sending. 1 and a white enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature card from a graveyard. When you do, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Put a +1/+1 counter on it if the exiled card's mana value is 4 or greater. Interesting. I could see this possibly seeing play in Legacy to go alongside the Staff of the Storyteller. Which, oddly enough, there is a skinned version for Final Fantasy that is tied to Yuna. Blitzball Stadium, X and a blue artifact. When this artifact enters, support X. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures. And go for the goal! 3 and tap until end of turn. Target creature gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw a card for each kind of counter on it. And it can't be blocked this turn. Okay, so a repeatable way to sneak something through and draw a bunch of cards. That's pretty sweet. Lulu, Stern Guardian. 2 and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human wizard. Whenever an opponent attacks you, choose target creature attacking you. Put a stun counter on that creature, and then 3 and a blue, proliferate. So, if you have... So I know Pentad Prism is one thing that you can abuse proliferate with. That makes mana. I'm trying to think if there's something else that you can remove counters to get mana. Just by removing counters. Nothing is coming to mind. But Everflowing Chalice is pretty solid. There may be a way to make this an infinite proliferate. Oh, I know. That's easy. So Training Grounds. So you add Training Grounds to this to reduce that to 2 mana. And then you use a Doubler and a Pentad Prism. You have infinite proliferates now. Because when you proliferate, you can add 2 counters with the counter doubler onto Pentad Prism, remove 2 counters, make 2 mana, proliferate again. You just keep going. There you go. Infinite proliferates. Yeah. Oaka, Traveling Merchant. 1 and a blue for a 1/2 legendary human citizen. Tap, remove a counter from target non-land permanent you control. Draw a card. Another way to remove counters from your sagas and draw cards in the meantime. It's pretty cool. Riku, Resourceful Guardian. 2 and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human artificer. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature, until end of turn, that creature can't be blocked by creatures your opponents control. Huh. And then Steal, 1 tap, move a counter from target creature an opponent controls onto target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. Oh, that's pretty cool. Nice way to steal other people's tokens. And make your stuff unblockable. Neat. Summon Veilfor. 4 and a blue for a 5/4 enchantment creature saga Drake with flying and 4 chapters. Chapter 1, Sonic Wings. Each opponent chooses a creature with the greatest mana value among creatures they control. Return those creatures to their owner's hands. And then 2, 3, and 4. Tap up to 1 target creature and put a stun counter on it. There you go. Since you want to be able to double counters anyway, it would increase your stun counters. Master Seymour. Or Maester? No, it's Master. Maester. Whatever. 2 and a green for a 1/3 legendary creature human elf cleric. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to Master Seymour's power on another target creature you control. And then 3 green Monstrosity X, where X is the number of counters among creatures you control. If this creature isn't monstrous, put X +1/+1 counters on it, and it becomes monstrous. Okay. That's pretty cool. Oh, that just lets you sling around a whole bunch of counters, too. Sphere Grid, 1 and a green enchantment. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. Okay. Unlockability, creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have reach and trample. Okay. That's pretty sweet. There's another enchantment for 1 and a green that normally just gives trample. Name of it is not coming to mind. I think it's from Exodus. I don't know. Summon Magus Sisters. Summon Magus Sisters. 4 and a green for a 5/5 enchantment creature saga fairy with haste and 3 chapters. Choose one at random. Oh, all 3 chapters are choose one at random. Combined powers, put 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Defense, put a shield counter on target creature, you gain 3 life. And fight, this creature fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Huh. That is a neat way to do that. Tromel, Seymour's Butler. 2 and a green for a 2/3 legendary elf advisor. Each other non-token creature you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Okay. 1 tap proliferate X times, where X is the number of non-token creatures you control that entered this turn. Huh. Now if there's only some way to untap him, this could do some really cool stuff. Yuna's Decision, 3 and a green, sorcery, choose one. Continue the pilgrimage, sacrifice a creature. If you do, draw a card. Then you may put a creature card and or a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Find another way, return one or 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. Huh. That is interesting. This is almost like a bad natural order in a lot of ways. But see how that goes. Yuna's Whistle. 2 green. For an instant, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When you reveal a creature card this way, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the mana value of that card. Okay, so a instant speed way to make... reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When you reveal a creature card this way, put X... Okay, so it's a weird combat trick that digs for a creature. Okay, that's strange. Kimahari, Valiant Guardian. 2 green for a 3/3 legendary cat warrior with vigilance and Ronzo Rage. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Kimahari and tap target creature an opponent controls. You may then have Kimahari become a copy of that creature, except that its name is Kimahari, Valiant Guardian, and it has vigilance and this ability. Neat. Okay. That's a weird one. Shalinda, Yvonne Acolyte. Green-white for a 2/2 legendary human cleric with lifelink. Whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature if its power is less than Shalinda's power. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on Shalinda. Okay. This also could play into the infinite combo, oddly enough. You could play the Walking Ballista after playing Shalinda, instead of paying for the Ballista, you just pay 0. Comes in with a counter, so then it would be 2 counters. Well, no, I think it would die from state-based effects first. No, it would die from state-based effects first. Never mind. Scrap that. I was wrong. You'd still have to pay for, at least for 1 counter. Sin, Unending Cataclysm. 5 green-blue for a 5/5 legendary Leviathan avatar with flying and trample. As Sin enters, remove all counters from any number of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Sin enters with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is twice the number of counters removed this way. When Sin dies, put its counters on target creature you control, then shuffle this card into its owner's library. So, that's a token or a counter multiplier. Oh, it removes counters from stuff from not just your stuff. Oh, that's even more powerful than I thought it was. That is a crazy one. Waka, Devoted Guardian. 2 green-white for a 4/4 legendary human warrior with reach and trample. Whenever Waka deals combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target artifact that player controls and put a +1/+1 counter on Waka. Blitzball Captain. At the beginning of your end step, if a counter was put on Waka this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. Okay. So we're throwing around counters anyway, might as well spread them to everything. This seems really strong for a precon. Let's see, collective effort, 1 white sorcery, escalate, tap an untapped creature you control. Pay this cost for each mode chosen beyond the first. Choose 1. Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater, destroy target enchantment, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature target player controls. I feel like this is a reprint. I think this is a reprint, but another good way of just slinging around counters, and it's a nice piece of removal on top of that. Damning Verdict. 3 white sorcery. Destroy all creatures with no counters on them. Blow up your opponent's stuff, but not your own. Farewell. One of the big bads of EDH at this point. 4 white sorcery. Choose 1 or more, which means you can choose all. I generally choose all. Exile all artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or graveyards. So you can pick any combination of those. Just great removal card. Luminous Broodmoth. Hey, that's a fun one. 2 white for a 3/4 insect with flying. Whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. So if you can remove that flying counter and then sacrifice it, you can bring it back again. There's some neat things that you can do with that. Promise of Loyalty. 4 and a white sorcery. Each player puts a Val counter on a creature they control and sacrifices the rest. Each of those creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control for as long as it has a Val counter on it. Well, that's fun. Another fun thing, if you animate all lands and cast this, you get to destroy everything except 1 creature. Well, sacrifice. And that's in the right colors. I think Nature's Revolt turns all lands into 2/2s, including your opponent's. Resourceful Defense. 2 and a white for an enchantment. Whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on target permanent you control. 4 and a white, move any number of counters from target permanent you control onto a second target permanent you control. Again, great way of keeping your summons around, or your sagas around. They're also summons, I guess. And just doing fun stuff. Scholar of New Horizons. 1 and a white for a 1/1 human scout. This creature enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. Tap, remove a counter from a permanent you control. Search your library for a Plains card and reveal it. If an opponent controls more lands than you, you may put that card onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't put the card onto the battlefield, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So it's a great way to keep your sagas around for a long time and, you know, tutor up lands. Keep in mind it says Plains card, not basic Plains, so you can get duels with this. So I could see this being useful in a number of contexts, and I would love to break this in Legacy. Especially like in a red-white shell, to put this alongside the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Sunscorch Regent, 3 white for a 4/3 dragon with flying. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and you gain a life. It grows real big. This would probably be one of the first cards I swap out, though. Together Forever, white enchantment. When this enchantment enters, support 2. And then for 1, choose target creature with a counter on it. When that creature dies this turn, return that card to its owner's hand. Interesting. There has to be some kind of infinite loop engine with that. I'm guessing something like Ashnod's Altar. Anything that has a thing come in with a counter, and then just a creature that costs 1 or 0. Yeah, that would work. That would work. Ashnod's Altar. Anything that comes in with a counter. And this gives you infinite mana or infinite sack triggers. There's some interesting ideas in here. Chasm Skulker, 2 and a white, or 2 and a blue, jeez. 2 and a blue for a 1/1 Squid Horror. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. When this creature dies, put X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk, where X is then... Oh, sorry. When this creature dies, create X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on this creature. They can't be blocked as long as defending player controls an island. That's pretty cool. Inexorable Tide, 3 blue enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. Hey. So remember how I said we could do like some infinite proliferate stuff and some really cool infinite stuff? Here's another way to do that, along with Together Forever. That's pretty sweet. Pull from Tomorrow. X blue instant. Draw X cards, then discard a card. Good thing to do with your infinite mana. Also just a good draw spell. Bane of Progress. 4 green for a 2/2 elemental. Whenever this creature enters, destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature for each permanent destroyed this way. I don't know how I feel about this one. Like, it's a good sweeper for artifacts and enchantments, but we play a lot of those ourselves, so might not be worth doing that with. Fight Rigging. That's a more recent one. 2 and a green enchantment with Hideaway 5. So whenever this enchantment enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down, then put the rest on the bottom in a random order. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then if you control a creature with power 7 or greater, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Pretty sweet. Lets you play stuff for free once your guys get big enough. Forgotten Ancient. 3 and a green for a 0/3 elemental. Whenever a player casts a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of +1/+1 counters from this creature onto other creatures. Nice way to grow something big and spread around counters. Generous Patron. 2 and a green for a 1/4 Elf Advisor. When this creature enters, support 2. Whenever you put one or more counters on a creature you don't control, draw a card. Nice draw engine that is not limited, and you can pass around counters, like stun counters, and draw cards. So, pretty cool. Gyre Sage. That also should work when you proliferate counters. So Gyre Sage, 1 and a green for a 1/2 elf druid with Evolve. Whenever a creature you control enters, if that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then tap, add green for each +1/+1 counter on this creature. With all of the ways of making infinite mana and just arbitrarily large creatures, this gets really silly really fast. Hardened Scales. Hey, you know how we were talking about counter doublers? This one works for +1/+1 counters. So for a green, it's an enchantment. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it, and that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. So basically, you just increase the number of counters by 1 whenever a counter is put on something, if it's a +1/+1 counter. Incubation Druid. This was an old fun one in Standard. 1 and a green for a 0/2 elf druid. Tap, add 1 mana of any type of land you control could produce. If this creature has a +1/+1 counter on it, add 3 mana of that type instead. And then for 3 green, you get to adapt 3. So if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, put 3 +1/+1 counters on it. Really easy to make this into a repeatable Black Lotus, basically. Path of Discovery, 3 and a green enchantment. Whenever a creature you control enters, it explores. Reveal the top card of your library. Put that card into your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on the creature. Then put the card back or put it into your graveyard. Overgrowth Elemental is a good one to pair with this. Rampant Rejuvenator, 3 and a green for a 0/0 Plant Hydra. This creature enters with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. When this creature dies, search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is this creature's power, and put them onto the battlefield. Notice it does not say tapped. So, with this and Hardened Scales, and a Ashnod's Altar, and the double white enchantment, you could get every basic out of your deck. Just a thought. They would all end up tapped, but you could do it. Tireless Tracker. And this would be a good thing to tie that along with. 2 and a green for a 3/2 Human Scout with Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, investigate. So you create its clue token. It's an artifact with 2, sacrifice this token, draw a card. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Very nice. Altered Ego. X, 2, a green and a blue. For a 0/0 Shapeshifter, this spell can't be countered. You may have this creature enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with X additional +1/+1 counters on it. This lets you do some really silly stuff. Endless Detour. Green, white, blue, instant. The owner of target spell, non-land permanent, or card in a graveyard puts it on their choice of the top or bottom of their library. This counters uncounterable stuff by just removing it from the stack. Fun. Fathom Mage. 2 green blue for a 1/1 human wizard with Evolve. Whenever a +1/+1 counter is put on this creature, you may draw a card. So, another huge draw engine with everything else we've got. And we have a Walking Ballista. The infinite combo is in the deck. The call is coming from inside the house. There is a turn 3 win with infinite damage built into this precon. Walking Ballista. XX for a 0/0 artifact creature construct. This creature enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. 4, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and then remove a +1/+1 counter from this creature. It deals 1 damage to any target. So with this and with this, Hardened Scales, and whatever the name of that creature at the very beginning was, Gata and Luzu. There we go. With Gata and Luzu, Walking Ballista, and Hardened Scales, you have an infinite damage combo that you can drop on turn 3. Wow. Brushland. It is the white-green pain land. Taps for colorless, and then you can tap it for white or green, and it deals 1 damage to you. Canopy Vista. It's a forest plains that enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. Exotic Orchard. Taps for the colors of mana your opponent's lands could produce. Flooded Grove. Taps for a colorless, and then filters a green or blue into either green-green, green-blue, or blue-blue. Fortified Village enters tapped unless you reveal a plains or forest from your hand, and then taps for a green or a white. Glacial Fortress enters tapped unless you control a plains or an island, taps for a white or a blue. Hinterland Harbor, same thing except for forests and island, and taps for green-blue. Overflowing Basin. Turn 1 mana of any type into green and blue. Port Town. When it enters, you may reveal a plains or an island. Otherwise, it comes into play tapped and then taps for a white or a blue. Prairie Stream. It's a plains island that enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. So it is a fetchable duel. Skycloud Expanse. One of the original Odyssey filter lands. Converts 1 mana of any kind into white-blue. Sungrass Prairie, same thing for white-green. Also one of the original Odyssey filter lands. Sunpetal Grove enters tapped unless you control a forest or a plains, taps for green or white. Temple of Enlightenment enters tapped. When it enters, you scry 1, and then taps for a white or a blue. Temple of Mystery, same thing but for green and blue. Temple of Plenty, same thing but for green and white. Vine Glimmer Snarl enters tapped unless you reveal a forest or an island, taps for a green or a blue. Now we're back to more spells. Destroy Evil, 1 and a white instant. Choose 1, destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater, or destroy target enchantment. Great one. Sees a lot of play in several formats. Being able to get rid of an enchantment or just a big creature is great. Grateful Apparition, 1 and a white. For a 1/1 spirit with flying, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, proliferate. Nice. Just another enabler. I might swap that out for like a Swords to Plowshares if it doesn't already have one. Path to Exile. The second best white removal ever printed. For a white, it's an instant. Exile target creature. Its controller may search the library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. An offer you can't refuse. Great counterspell. For a blue, it's an instant. Counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. Keep in mind, you can use this to counter your own stuff to accelerate yourself. Duskshell Crawler. 1 and a green for a 0/3 insect. When this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. It's pretty nice. Nice way to throw around extra counters and trample. Farseek, 1 and a green for sorcery. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card. Put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Yes, this grabs duels. No, you cannot grab just a forest with it. You can grab a forest duel, but you can't grab like a sapseed forest. Or something like that. That is a forest, but not a dual land. Inspiring Call. 2 and a green, instant. Draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. Well, that's just good. Draws you a bunch of cards and saves your creatures. 3 visits. This is a functional reprint of Nature's Lore. I think it's Nature's Lore. 1 in a green sorcery, search your library for a forest card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. Keep in mind that does not come into play tapped. Bred for the Hunt. 1 green blue for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. More card draw. Arcane Signet. We all know what this does, but 2 mana artifact taps for your commander's color identity. Everflowing Chalice. Hey, another thing to proliferate onto. 0 mana artifact with multi-kicker 2. You may pay an additional 2 any number of times as you cast a spell. This artifact enters with a charge counter on it for each time it was kicked. Tap, add colorless for each charge counter on this artifact. So you can proliferate to make this thing give more mana. Soul Ring, 1 mana artifact that taps for 2. I don't know what it does, but still one of the best cards ever printed. Ash Barrens taps for colorless and has basic land cycling 1. So you can pay 1 and discard this to search for a basic and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Nice way to color fix. Evolving Wilds, let's be honest, you're probably going to swap this out as soon as you can for a dual land. But you tap and sacrifice it to search your library for a basic, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. At the very least, like a Prismatic Vista or something. Forge of Heroes. Tap for colorless and then tap, choose target commander that entered this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it if it's a creature and a loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker. That's an interesting one. Really nice with all the extra counters that we're throwing around. Idyllic Beachfront. It's a plains island that enters tapped. You're probably going to swap this out for a fetch or for a shock land at earliest convenience, which would be Hallowed Fountain. Nesting Grounds. Tap for a colorless, and then 1 tap, move a counter from target permanent you control to a second permanent. Activate only as a sorcery. Hey, this again lets you move around lore counters off your sagas and all kinds of other stuff. Great with token or with counter doublers, and just great on its own. Also, based on what I've seen so far, you're going to want to put Doubling Season in this somehow. Shouldn't be that hard. But Path of Ancestry enters tapped. Tap, add 1 mana of any color of your commander's color identity. When that mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. Yeah, that's a thing. Radiant Grove, Forest Plains, enters tapped. You'll want to update this with a Temple Garden eventually. Seaside Citadel, enters tapped. Taps for green. Let's see, green, white, blue. You'll want to swap this for Aspara's Headquarters eventually, because it is fetchable and you can cycle it if you don't need it, but this is good enough to get you started. Tangled Islet, it's a forest island, enters tapped. You'll want to swap this out for a breeding pool eventually. Then Temple of the False God. You know, some people swear by this card. I think it's bad. I would rather have an Ancient Tomb most of the time. But it taps for 2, activate only if you control 5 or more lands. By the time this is producing 2 mana, you don't need the extra mana most of the time. Command Tower. We all know what it does. Taps for your commander's color identity. It's in basically every commander deck. And now we're to the basics. We have 1, 2, 3 plains. 1, 2, 3 islands. And 1, 2, 3 forests. Very nice. And our tokens. We have a treasure clue token. A clue treasure token. Okay. A spirit squid token. That's pretty sweet. Spirit squid token, another spirit squid token, another spirit squid token, and hey, 4 punch out tokens with different counters on them. That's pretty sweet. Oh, those are lore counters. Okay, that's... I haven't seen that in quite a... I haven't seen those done that way before. Lore counter, stun counter, flying counter, shield counter. And then, of course, +1/+1 counters. I don't know what's on the back of them. Oh, they do have some different stuff on the back. The lore counters are the same. Where the +1/+1 counters have shield and flying counters on the back. The stun counters are also the same. That's pretty cool. I like that. And then a turn order reminder card and a popular Magic's format card. Very cool. Surprisingly enough, this is my favorite deck of the 4 so far. This is pretty cool. Like, the lands could be better, and yeah, you could add like doubling season, but as far as a stock commander deck, that's pretty sweet. But alright, well, thank you for joining me on this adventure. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff in the algorithm. Let me know, what would you add to this, or what would you swap out? This one's pretty cool. I like it. But until next time, stay awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.